schedule. He said he was coming, but I think he's not going to be here till 6:30. But we started at 6:30 last time, and we started at 6 this time, so I'm not sure what. I think
Guess it's 6.
this one's 6. Yeah, I think so. But I wasn't sure because I was thinking 6:30, and then luckily I pulled it up and I was like, oh crap, 6 o'clock. So.
I gotta lock that down a little more.
Well, I'd like to welcome everybody out to the work meeting for November 13th, 2025. I'd like to welcome David, Deputy Chief, coming here to help us out, and we can discuss some things on there. Appreciate his time coming out. So I guess we'll dive right into that discussion and kind of discuss any items that the commission has with the flag lots that they would want to address, or if you have something prepared, Malcolm, that would be.
Yeah, I don't have anything prepared. Just in our last time we met, you guys mentioned it'd be good to hear from Public Works, so we'll get Jared here eventually. Jared, it's harder to get than David. Should be in first. Jared's a little busy, but worst case, from Jared and me, we were thinking we could set a work meeting even and invite a couple people, but in the interim, we just get the fire perspective on it. There's obviously a lot of considerations from, the stem road and proximity to the fire hydrant and the surface and access, maintenance and removal, things like that, and safety. So I understand why you want to come. So yeah, let's just open it up. And did you have anything you wanted to start out and then hit your questions? We couldn't take a ton of your time, really.
No, that's fine. I've got information, but I'd probably rather just have you guys ask her what your concerns are, and then I can probably just fill in anything you would like to know, hopefully. So,
I guess my main thing is, what are you looking, when you're, we don't have a flag lot ordinance, but as you go into other cities and you have to encounter these, what are, the problems that you see that you wish were different versus things that work well from a fire perspective?
no, that's a great question. So I can just start off with some information, and then we can go from there and let you guys ask questions. So the fire code is the minimum standard that, assuming that an area, a city, whatever, doesn't have any rules, that we at least have the IFC, the fire code, that we can fall back on. So some of the requirements that they have would be, we adopt the appendices. It says in chapter 5 that you can go up to 600 foot on a hydrant. Really, the appendices is 500 feet. If somebody was somewhere in between, probably give them a little bit of latitude. Try to be reasonable with them. If it's really far, that's what I'm going to tell them. You guys need to bring a hydrant down. But if it's close, we give them the benefit of the doubt.
You do.
Try to
You do that on single lot subdivisions too.
single lot.
You did that to my son-in-law. So.
I try to help as much as I can, but if they get far away, I've got to put one in. I know it's expensive, but
How
I've
do you
got to
measure that?
protect their family. As the hose lays. Perfect question. Exactly. How's the engine? The hose comes off the back of the engine, and as the engine drives to the house.
So it has to be able to drive.
Correct. It's not as the bird flies. It's as the hose lays. Good question. So thank you. And then we want 20 foot wide, as close as we can to 20 feet wide going down. They can call it a driveway, but the reality is in the flag lot, this part of the driveway, and again, I don't care what they call it, but it's, for us, it's the fire access road. And when they get into their yard and right in here, that's really the driveway. But if they call it a driveway, that's fine. But we want that 20 feet, and we really want a maintainable surface. Now, in the day, we used to use road base, but it's failing everywhere, and so we've kind of gone a little bit more to where at least we're using the roto mill.
Okay.
You guys sounds like you guys are familiar with that. So it's almost like asphalt. So we want them to be able to scrape snow. We want the engines to be able to get in. I don't want a mud pit. I don't want stuff growing through it, stuff like that. So we're trying to get in that direction. It might make some people mad because in the past they've been able just to compact road base. And I'll I'll be honest with you, the one thing I'll say, I always give you guys kudos for this. Hooper's one of the few cities that'll actually core and test it and make sure we have the compaction to support the 75,000 pounds. But it has to support 75,000 pounds. And so it really is, I do appreciate that. And Jared, I think, does a great job of making sure that's done right for me. Typically on a fire lane, if there is a hydrant brought down, it's supposed to be 26 feet wide. Again, this is something where we can, in code, do a cutout and put the hydrant in there and leave it at 20, so that we're not burdening a homeowner with a 26-foot wide road. I mean, if he'll give it to us, great, but if he's like, can I just do 20 and do a cutout? Yes. The reason that they usually go to 26 is just so there's room for the hose and then engines to pass. But I try to get them to kick the hose off to save the now we're talking a single family lot. You know, if it gets to start to be multiple, then it has to start following more of that 26 at least.
So my road is out of spec. It's only got 21 feet.
Oh, well, it's nice though, because at least we can pass.
Yeah.
And so, but yes, flag lots are common. I mean, there's actual verbiage in the code for flag lots.
In your code or in?
In the IFC, correct.
Okay.
Just in the, and when I'm quoting that, it's just the IFC. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't do what you want. Again, it's just the minimum standard. And then a city can come in and say, we want whatever.
So you don't have a problem with like in our cul-de-sacs, we have a certain measurement so that they can
Do a turnaround.
turn around, but with
So,
a flag
No,
lot,
great question, thank you. No, that's another great question. That's been two super good mind joggers. So if it's over 150 feet,
okay,
they're supposed to have an approved turnaround. Now, this is something where in a cul-de-sac with multiple homes, we go by the code. This is where I cheat a little bit. When it's a single family dwelling, I hate this when it's recorded, but I'm gonna tell you, we go a little more cowboy when it's a single family. And what I mean by that is say you're building a house. What I'll tell you is you make it to where I can turn a fire truck around and I'll approve it. Because it's your house, it's your lot. I don't wanna make you do something crazy, but if you can do what works for you and we can get an engine turned around, I'm gonna sign it off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, if it's multiple homes, then it goes back just to the code. But I really want a homeowner to have more say in his home and property. And so I try to work with them to do that, if that makes sense. And I've done that all over the Upper Valley, out west, just wherever. It usually works out. Most people will actually say, I'll make it work, and they do a decent job. So.
On that code, what is the turnaround, 60 feet? Or what do you need to?
So it depends. On the cul-de-sac, it's 96.
Okay.
Okay, so 48 diameter, 96. On a hammerhead, it is 20 feet. This is just technical code, not what if someone gave me 18, I'm gonna, and it works for them, I'd sign it off, like on a single family, but by code, it is 60 from center line. So imagine the road goes down and we do a hammerhead from the center line of this road going down to the end of the hammerhead.
Needs to be
60. So you're right on.
Off each side, correct?
Correct.
So that you can pull in, back out, and turn around.
But again, I probably would, if they came back and said I can get 52, I would probably sign them off. If it was a subdivision, it's gonna be closer to code.
I guess if we're creating this for flag lots, we can kind of steer them to that 60, you know what I mean? Make some minimums and.
Yeah.
Well, and the coring was a good point too, because I could see somebody just wanting to lay the thinnest asphalt they could, like you went in a driveway down that road to save money. I don't think they realized the cost difference to actually put down a heavy duty road like that, there's gonna be a lot of cost in there. But it makes sense to get the trucks down there. With medical, Weber County, do you guys run the engines with the medical on board, or it's all ambulances out here, right? I can't remember what they call that.
No, it's good. So, you're gonna have a new station built here pretty quick. You're gonna have your own fire
Maybe,
station.
it's gotta pass, but.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
yeah. No, you're right. But I'm very optimistic.
We are too, that'll be nice.
I really would like to have a Hooper fire station. So, it's gonna have an engine, all of our medical personnel. So there's 3 levels. There's EMT, there's advanced, and there's paramedic. Okay? So different level of education. All of ours have to be at least advanced.
Okay.
Now, on the, I call it a rescue truck because that's what I was on, a medic truck. On the medic truck, there's paramedics. So occasionally you'll get a paramedic working on an engine,
Yeah.
but the medic truck has to be paramedics, and the ambulance and the engine all are advanced EMTs.
Well, the direction for my question, I
Sorry.
wasn't clear. No, that's okay. I apologize. I wasn't very clear on it. So I know Ogden City, they've gone to some of those trucks where they're lifting gurneys up into the fire trucks.
Transport engines.
Yeah, transport.
We won't have those.
Okay, good, because that would be a concern for me too, because you got to turn that mother around too.
Yeah,
So,
I worked on it. I
how's
retired.
your shoulders?
I retired from Ogden before I came to Weaver.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Because that would have been my concern. But if they're loading people
Yeah.
into ambulances, that means
no,
they can turn around. a
that,
lot
that would
quicker.
take the engine too far, because that engine has to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And we're not
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
take an engine away from the citizens out long.
700 gallons of gas.
Yeah,
for one
they,
car.
we're not as, they make a lot of money on ambulance transports, but our focus is more on, being here and customer service. Not saying they're not, but we're not gonna take an engine that far away from you.
Pretty much answered all my questions.
No, there's some good points in there that I wouldn't have even thought about.
One thing,
Yeah.
from the city standpoint, and this is probably a little out of your area of expertise, but you might have a perspective on it, is what if you go to respond to something and it's not maintained? You can't access it, the road's not maintained, 'cause right, we can do all these things, but it's still.
You're
still
right, there's
the
always,
homeowner has to.
I mean, it could still have, a foot of snow, but, I mean, the thing is what we do is we try to prepare it reasonably prudent and just be prepared, and we do code, but at the end of the day, there is some responsibility to the homeowner. And so, but that's true with anything.
I mean, you have that, you have that in regular cities now because the C roads, you classify them A, B, C, D, so your C's and D's are the last to get plowed. So they could pull into a cul-de-sac that hasn't been plowed yet by you know what I mean? So it'd be in the same vein, I guess, as somebody that has a 150-foot lane that didn't get it cleared.
If we make them go to the minimum code or even more, the thing about it is, as far as a liability standpoint, is maybe what you're thinking or asking is, we've done our part.
Yep.
Liabilities off of, and when I say us, I am part of the city. So when I'm here with you, I am your fire marshal, and so we're working together as a team, but it takes liability off the city and the fire department. But
Yeah.
so, and it puts the onus back on the homeowner. I think we could, if they have a hard surface and they haven't plowed it, we're probably gonna get down there. And so, that's what really matters.
Yeah.
It's when they have mud bogs, and there's snow, but it's warm and it's, then it gets bad.
Yep.
So, that's why we're trying to go to where we're having at least roto mill.
So I have a question.
Yes,
I don't know if this makes sense, but if I'm understanding it correctly,
Yes.
if you have a 150-foot drive, you have to have an approved turnaround.
Yeah, yes, an approved
Okay.
turnaround, which would mean that we would go look at it and say, yes, this will work.
So when we have like an ADU or a big pole barn that's built and there's an ADU inside or something like that and it's clear back there, do we require the same type of
Yes.
stringent things? Like
Yes.
the roadway has to be a
Yes.
certain grade, everything
Yes.
we do, okay.
Really, the flag lot's no different than an ADU. Here's the one difference that they did in the state legislature, and you gotta understand, a lot of them are home builders, and this will come back, especially if Schultz listens to it, right? But he can't say I'm wrong. I'm very honest, but what it is they do a lot of state legislature to take some of the code away to make it more lucrative for home builders or whatever, and that's just the facts.
Yep.
And so they came out with and I follow the state code very closely so that we're staying within the law. Well, it doesn't matter if I like it or not. I just have to enforce what code is, right? And so I try to do a good job of keeping it straight. But they did a thing where if you put an ADU back there, and as long as the hydrants were spaced properly in the subdivision, you can't require a hydrant to go down to the ADU. So that's one difference. In a flag lot, it's a new house that still needs to be within the distance of the hydrant.
And again,
So-
I got mixed up on that, sorry, Amanda,
Well,
but it was
you're-
500, 600, 500, in that range.
Okay, chapter five, that just by the book, chapter 5 says a flag lot can go to 600 feet.
Okay.
But we adopt the appendices, and so we use the hydrant spacing in the appendices, which is really technically 500 feet. Everything I've done, if they're close, I will sign them off, because again, it's just trying to be reasonable with the homeowner. I'm not trying to nickel and dime citizens. It's expensive enough to do anything anymore. And so if they're close, we're gonna, if it's 550, I'm gonna sign it off.
So if it's an ADU and it's further away than that 500 or 600 feet,
Nothing I can do.
so what do you guys do? Okay, so-
Lay line and hope that there's not so much friction loss and loss that we can at least pump water.
But we could put that, we could make more stringent, or
I don't know if you can go against state code for that.
that just seems crazy to me that
You're
we,
right, but I think when the state makes that, you can't,
Supersede.
you can't go against it. Their rule, even if you did, their rule supersedes yours.
so I thought and I guess it depends on the application, because in some ways you have to state, like you said, this is what's required by this, but if you guys want to add to that, you can in some instances,
Correct.
but not when it comes to ADUs.
Well, it's not so much that. It's just if there isn't a state code for something, you can be more restrictive than the fire code. But if the state code comes back, say the gallonage, so you can build. There's a lot of good examples. Another thing they did years ago, and a lot of fire marshals don't know this, and they get in trouble. So again, I try to be really careful to know the state code. And technically, a 7,000 square foot home, the fire flow for that's like 2,250 or 2,500. We have to look at it just in case. And but the state, long time ago, they went in and they said you can't require more than 2,000 gallons a minute for any size home. So even though the code says, so if Hooper said we require 2,500 gallons of water, you can't, because the state explicitly said 2,000 is the max you can require. Now, if they wouldn't have done that, then you could have. Does that make sense?
This is probably.
And so you still have a lot of latitude. You just can't go against what the state code is.
So maybe, I don't know, if homeowners insurance figures into that, if they require that you have to be within so many feet of a,
I know. Well,
I know I
do-
get a discount for being closer to one.
yeah. I just wondered,
if
like,
you're
what
with-
protection those people have in
no,
those
that's another-
ADUs.
well,
here's
if
another
they're
good question, but it's
not
1,000
in right
feet.
distance.
And so your ISO is a 3, and the lower the better. You were a 5 or a 6 back in the day, and we've got it down to a 3. I'm going to push for a 2 next year, or not next year, the next time for the lower valley. Upper valley is harder, but here's the deal. So Weber is technically a 3x10 split. The X means if you're farther away than 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant, then you're an X. And so if the ADU is 1,100 feet away, it's a 3X. Does that make sense?
Not entirely, but
I know
I'm trying to
it's-
follow what you're
Yeah, so if you're within the 1,000 feet of it, no, this is just the insurance.
Okay,
It has
gotcha.
nothing to do with the IFC. It's just the insurance says that if you're within 1,000 feet, then you lose the X and you're just a 3.
Okay.
So if you're a 3, you pay less. If you're a 3X, you pay more. And if you're like up in Causey, so far away from station 62 and 5, you're just a 10. And there's nothing I can do except, we're not gonna build a fire station up at Causey.
Yeah.
Hooper's not gonna pay for a station at Causey.
So if they build, if somebody were to put in just a pole barn or something, it doesn't have an ADU in it, same,
It's called a U building and there was, insurance would just.
but
yeah.
not insurance-wise
Okay,
necessarily,
sorry.
but your requirements.
I
Because you
can.
get a lot of oversized structures
Yep,
that
I
come in.
can, because here's the thing, in the code, there are ag exemptions, you guys hear that sometimes, but there's not exemptions yet in fire code. And so they build a 4,000 square foot pole barn, and I think technically the fire flow for that would be enough that they'd need 2 fire hydrants. Now, I probably would make them just bring in 1, just try to be reasonable, but I could say, yes, you need to bring in a hydrant. That's why every building that goes through a plan review through Hooper needs to go through me. Because I protect the city from liability. Because if you guys, and I'm not saying you do this, but say you have a structure and you don't give it to me, and then it's built and there's a problem, the liability will go to the city. Because in court, the first thing they're gonna say to you is, did you, the city approved it, what did the fire marshal say?
Yep.
Oh, we didn't send it to him. Okay, well then you're taking liability.
Liability.
We had a big meeting at the county one time, and I don't mind saying it because it was a positive outcome and everybody there was great. It was just, they weren't sending some buildings to me, and they built a house that was 8,000 square feet. No hydrant in sight, and they used it as almost like a lodge. And so I told them, I said, so is the county gonna put in the hydrants and retro the sprinkler system? Who's gonna pay for this? The attorneys were there, and it was a big meeting. And the boss of the county I'm kind of shortcutting, but he just looked at the people, the staff, and said, this will never happen again. And it hasn't. So it's same thing, like even a pole barn, yep, we'll review it. And there might not be any fees. It's like, we're not looking for just their money. It's just, we want to make sure that just what you're saying. If it's a big building, we're going to make them do a hydrant.
I only asked, sorry, go ahead,
My
Travis.
question on this, because we don't, the stuff that comes to the planning commission, right? So he handles all the reviews on barns and all that. Do we have to write all this into flag lot ordinance? Or is that?
You shouldn't have to, because everything's reviewed by me. And so
But it's just good information for us that we'd be able to give somebody that, hey, if we're talking about a flag lot, here's some of the things that
you need to
the
look
fire
at.
department's gonna discuss with you.
Yeah, of course you can do that. So we try to be super fair and consistent and transparent, like for real, not like they say at the federal level. We try to be real. So, anyway.
So as they determine how close they want a hydrant, or, like I said, if they want to have a different, or, more stringent, they want one closer, or if someone wanted to do fire sprinklers, can you put that into perspective? How much does the hydrant cost? Roughly.
I think plugs are going for about 10,000 now. So say we're doing a home like Kilts.
Yeah.
He has a hydrant and he's got sprinklers because his house is so big. So at 10,000 square feet, you can have 6 fire hydrants and you're still going to sprinkle your house. But normally up to 10,000 square feet in a subdivision with hydrants, there is no sprinklers. Now,
Up to 10,000?
up to 10,000. Over 10,000 use sprinkler. Because the reason is you get a home that big, you can't meet fire flow.
Yeah.
There's just not enough water for a house that size, pumping through a hydrant. So if you're up in the upper valley, though, and there's no water, there's no hydrants anywhere to be found. If it's over 3,600 square feet, you're sprinkler in there.
Sprinkler.
And we use it so we don't use it as like a punishment. We use it as an alternate means and method so that someone can build their dream home. They want to live there. And so instead of saying, no, you can't because there's not hydrants, we say, offer us a solution and they don't know, and then we hint that that's the solution, and then they say, yes, we want to sprinkler our house, and then we let them build. And so we're trying, we try to do it to be nice, not to, punish them. But
I think that's what most of them houses had to do on 24-25, like Mike Higley and Stan Fowers and all them, they had to sprinkler.
here in the city,
You said you think a hydrant's about 10 grand, or 10,000 square feet they have to sprinkle on? I got
You
confused.
said the
No,
plug was
hydrant's 10 grand.
10,000,
yeah,
right?
all of the above. So, okay, so I sometimes get off because I nerd out on stuff and I want to tell you everything. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
So a hydrant's I think the last I heard was 10,000.
Yeah,
To hot tap and install it on a water main. A sprinkler system for a home is probably 30.
Wow.
I know, it is expensive.
Wow.
But the only thing is though, and I'm not gonna get like on a soapbox or anything, but I do want you to think about this. The difference between smoke detectors and a sprinkler system in a home is smoke detectors may go off, they may wake you up and you might get out. You can be an old drunkard, whatever, and be passed out, and if there's a fire in your house, the sprinklers will put it out. You'll wake up wet. And things can dry, but they can't unburn. So there really is some good things about sprinklers. I mean, honestly, if everybody had seen what I've seen and knew what I knew, they'd probably build homes with the sprinklers just standard.
Yeah.
But it probably will never happen here, because the home builders are in charge. But when you pull out little kids that have been burned and you're trying to revive them and they die, I'd pay $30,000 all day, right?
We could probably get a closer
So
idea if we went to Wayne Hawes and asked him, cause that's all he does.
Is
if
it?
a homeowner or the flag lot,
Boys.
financially it wouldn't make sense. I'm just thinking if there's any other scenarios, if they say, I want to just sprinkle it, I don't want a hydrant, does that resolve all your concerns? So we could let them.
Depends on how far away the hydrant is. So yes, they could do that. And here's why. If it was like an extraordinary amount of money, like an unreasonable and an undue burden to bring the hydrant in, then I could say, what would you offer me? And if they say, we'll sprinkler the home, then I'd let them do it. Because again, we don't ever want to tell somebody in my office that they can't build. We just want to give them options what to do so they can.
Okay.
So yes, that would be an option.
And then if they did have to extend a plug, this is probably a really dumb question, but
No, it's
I'm
not.
sure it's pretty up there. The same laws apply. They'd have to red curb certain distances around that plug, right? So if we're talking, if they had to run something down by this turnaround, there's going to be parts of that they're not going to be able to park by or use. I mean,
Technically, it's there is parking spacing and then there's just spacing.
yeah.
But honestly, in the code, it's a 3-foot clear path all the way around the hydrant. So
Oh,
it's
it's
really
not 5? I thought it was 5 feet.
well. You can do that as a city ordinance.
Okay.
Salt Lake has one, and then they had to back off. They did a really big one downtown,
Yeah.
and do you remember that? And then they had to back it off. Honestly, if they give us room to access it, I don't sweat it.
Okay.
I really don't. There's a lot of other things to worry about. Because honestly, if you can access it, you're not hurting anything.
Yeah.
It's just people that park right in front of it make it really difficult. But it's actually a good question. So just another thing just between us, painting the red curb doesn't mean anything.
No.
It doesn't, you actually have to put, like if we do no parking somewhere because it's too narrow, you have to put signage up.
Yeah.
That's what code is.
It's the same with handicap signage.
So the deputies can't cite anybody or us. We can't cite anybody and the deputies can't cite anybody if it's just red curb. But if there's signage, we can.
I didn't know that.
So really quickly, just as an FYI, for a fire access road, if you're 20 feet to 26, or 20 feet, you can't have parking on either side. When you're 26 feet wide, you can park on one side, no parking on the other side. And then when you get to 32 or wider, you can park on both sides. Just as an FYI.
It's good.
And whenever, if you guys ever want anything or any of the charts or anything, email me. I'll get in and find it and I'll snip it and send it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, like whenever you guys want, so. And he has my address, so if you need it, email him and he'll forward it to me. Sorry, I mean, I know you do, so.
I think we're good. Anybody else have any questions? Okay.
Appreciate you giving us all the information.
Well, I work for you guys, so,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks.
Are you good?
Yeah, we're set. Me and you
Okay.
will probably be in
I
touch.
talk too much sometimes, I'm sorry.
No, we have 30 minutes left. You can tell us more if you want.
You could turn out to be a nerd too. 'Cause I might have played a little bit of sports and look at me now. Now I'm really a nerd. So you're not immune from it.
Hey, appreciate it. You know that. If you want, you know.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Yep. If I get one, I think about it, I'll send you.
Yeah, shoot me a pic. Have a good one.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Tell me to call or whatever, okay? And then again, if you need something, just email me and I'll get it for you.
Thank you.
So.
Okay.
all right.
A lot of good information to consider as we think about what we want to see from our ordinance side there, I think. I think he brings up a good point about if it's called out in state code, you can't go beyond that. I think that's just a good point of reference in not only this discussion, but as other things comes down the pipe with what's being pushed from up there. That's good to know.
Well, and where he was, when he was saying we don't have to write all this into the ordinance, I wonder if there's some of that we do want to include though, like road widths and, I mean, that's something we've got to take into account, right? If they're going by the side of another property, that road width or access is going to be a pretty big point of conversation.
What if though, what if somebody wants to come in and build a flag lot and they already have a road easement that they've been using for years to go to the back pasture, let's say, to water, and it's 20 feet wide.
Well, that's, if,
So they can use that now as their driveway, because it's 20 feet.
yeah. But we also have to, are we going to allow separate owners for that back flag lot? Or is it got to be from the person in the front of the house that's developing that back piece? Does that make sense? Because the easement wouldn't matter if I own the front property. I can get to my back property.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking how narrow would the flag lot, you know what I mean? Let's say it's that 20 or 30 foot lane that goes back there and then it opens up into a 5 acre.
Yeah.
And I want to build back in that 5 acres. Well, I've got the 20 foot easement or driveway, as he put it.
Yeah.
I just got to lay some rotomill down now to make it more robust. I'm trying to think of one.
No, I'm with you because
What was the, well, that,
they just wouldn't be able to park on it
yeah.
on either side, apparently. But that's not an us issue. We don't enforce traffic code of parking.
I'm trying to think of an instance here because Ryan Fisher's was 100 and something feet, right? And then
On
it went
the
back.
property on 6300, is that
Yeah.
what you're talking about?
Yeah, it was pretty wide, but is there anybody out there, well, go down 6300 even farther, Perkins, they have that, it's the Perkins property.
Lynn and Gay.
Yeah, don't they have a pretty narrow driveway back to their house and it's probably 20 feet? I mean, they're grandfathered obviously, but there could be other instances in the city with that same kind of design that it's narrow and then blows out.
How big is, you know where Rousers used to live?
Who?
Wasn't it Rousers that lived in that house back
Oh,
on
Misty?
59 Yeah. on 5900.
She's still there. It's,
Oh, is she still up there? I didn't know.
yeah, it's 35, 40 feet. It's pretty wide.
I guess listening to him, it seemed like he was pretty lenient toward the homeowners on single homes
Yeah.
and more strict when it was
Multi.
multiple homes, and it's based off of, I'm not saying we can't make it more strict than what his code is, but if it seems like that from a citizen's perspective, if the fire marshal's not requiring more than this, why do we want to hamper our citizens saying,
Yeah, you're trying to make it so that if somebody has a piece of property like that, they can use it, and we're not handcuffing them to say, well, sorry you bought that piece, or you inherited that piece, because you can't do anything with it.
yeah. And I guess I view this as not as a way like to skirt around any development, subdivision type things. Like I feel like if we lay those out pretty good requirements in the code where people aren't doing this to develop properties or things like that, that I think the things that he set out in there would be pretty, I mean, they're gonna be able to service those customers
Yeah.
based off those measurements, so I don't know why we would try to go require something more.
Yeah.
I think I don't think that we should try to make it more stringent than what he requires. The examples that you gave us in our previous meeting, like West Point in their ordinance, it says, however, a turnaround reviewed and approved by the appropriate fire suppression agency shall be provided. So I think if we decide that we want to move forward and have an ordinance for that, I think just including that wording that it needs to meet all of the fire code by
Right,
the
that's
approving
fine.
authority,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
a good idea.
But I think,
Well, yeah, 'cause that takes the onus off of us.
yeah, I think we still need to decide if that is the direction that we want to go in. Like maybe look at some of these other ordinances that you gave us examples of, and decide if we want to include some of that wording in there. Also, you know, we talked a little bit about whether we should do an actual ordinance to allow these, or maybe make them something that we allow as a conditional use type thing. Do we get a lot of, when I talked to you, it sounded like we only had one person really that was really pushing for this, and I don't know, I shared the example with Malcolm the other day. My background's in mortgage, and we had a loan that was closing, and right before closing we called to find out something from the borrower, and we called their employer and they said they don't work here anymore, and so the loan fell through. And because of that, the entire company decided from now on, every loan that closes within 3 days of closing, we have to call and verify that they still work there, which was kind
After
of
closing or
before closing, which was a pain sometimes, because sometimes they do their verifications of employment through a corporate office. It takes time, and you're delaying a closing, and those are delicate. You have a time frame you have to work within. So my point is, we overhauled the entire process because of one instance. And is that something that we feel like there's necessarily a need to do with this, or could it be something that could be done maybe as a conditional use, case by case, where we look at it and look, is this something that would be a benefit? I don't know, it's just an idea.
Or a variance.
Yeah.
We have a variance committee in our
I
books.
think
on it.
variances are pretty
Yeah,
strict with
a
what they
variance
allow, though.
Is, tied to the land necessarily, and it's not something that a flag lot would be. Is that, you're still discussing flag
Mhm,
lots? Yeah, so flag lot's not something that necessarily would allow, or a variance would allow for. Based on the circumstances of what is required, so you have to meet each and every element of a variance, it's not just one of them. And so, like a flag lot is something that could be considered self-imposed, but it's more the topography of the land is one thing that's considered, and setbacks. Can't consider it a financial interest. But yeah, I'd say 95% of variances that are approved are legal.
So is there any other way to do this other than putting an ordinance on the books that opens this up to somebody else saying, oh, well, I have 4 out of 5 of these, and then having that cause the city margins?
So, I mean, you could do it a conditional use permit. You just have to ensure that, every applicant is treated equally. That way you kind of remove some of your discretion out of that. But then the ordinance, if you have your ordinance, administrative review, like, is this what it is? And go through that process that way.
In your opinion, what would be the best for both the property owners out here and the city as far as safeguarding the city from getting into a mess down the road that,
So really, either or, and it's more, I mean, 'cause there's a lot of cities that have allowed flag lots, which if there's not a lot going into it initially, it can create issues, and it sounds like, I mean, Malcolm's very on top of things and clearly already, I'm sorry I was late, but went through I'm guessing the fire marshal or the fire department's requirements and things like that. The other thing is, like, you have, utilities, and it can increase that cost for different homeowners, developers, which, they can incur their costs, whatever. But then it can also increase the cost of on the city in upgrading or maintaining your infrastructure because of, you allow these flag lots by ordinance, and then you might have a lot of people all of a sudden that now qualify for that. And if it's by ordinance and they meet all the boxes, then you can't say no.
Yeah.
But it's all, I mean, conditional use permit.
Yeah, that was kind of the same with conditional use, like.
I was just, I'm gonna say, if you meet all those boxes as well, and you wanna say no just to say no, then that can get the city in trouble as well, so.
Well, they still have to meet zoning regulations though, right?
Correct, yes.
So, I mean, I don't see flag lots creating an issue where all of a sudden we have all this density that everybody's worried about. If I'm
Well, I
not
think you're
fighting
thinking
incursion.
today, now think 20 years from now. That's what you gotta think about.
Sure.
Most of the cities actually require like 150% of
the
the
minimum.
zoning of the area, right? So generally they're larger than anything else.
Which
I don't know
that-
the logic behind that, but it's common.
If we put something like that in place, I mean, I think that would cut down maybe on the number of them that we get, which I don't know if that's our goal, but I'd really like to see or hear what Jared has to say, because my understanding was Public Works had some strong concerns at one point, and I don't know if those have been resolved, but I would lean pretty heavily on what he says, since he's gonna be the man on the ground that knows what they're gonna be dealing with as far as utilities and all that kind of stuff, so.
Yeah, we can get with Jared for sure and get a meeting or conversation put together.
So this really only applies to like 2 or 3, maybe 5 parcels of land right now, right?
Not necessarily like a scope like that, but yeah, it'd be fairly limited. I would imagine more than that, but it wouldn't be super applicable to many. Maybe like.
Is that something we can put on the books, have those people that want it done take back off the books? Is that something that's...
I mean, the ordinances can change at any time. Anyone that's in that application process will already be vested within that, and so they, regardless of where it's at, they have that opportunity to get it. So it is something that you could do that way. Seems a lot of work for the ordinance to go through, and just for a few people.
So what is the goal? You said you don't know if that's our goal. What is our goal?
I kind of think we treat it as a case by case. I don't know if we need a full-fledged ordinance. You just get the 1 or 2 people that want to build, and here's my situation. So now they come in, and then we give them all this information that we've got, that we know of from the fire department. I mean, really, Public Works, I know Jared has his feelings on it, but if it's a 20-foot driveway, the city basically stops at the end of the road easement or the entrance, right? And if something fails, like I'm 200 feet off the road, so if something fails on my electrical, Blake gets to take care of it because the city has no skin in the game, you know what I mean?
I guess, Gene, my goal would be to maximize property ownership, let citizens do with their property within the bounds, but also protecting the city and the values that are already established. So
I'm just wondering if we put an ordinance out there for flag lots, if we'll have more that come in, and if we don't have an ordinance, and we treat them on a case-by-case basis, maybe we curtail the
Right.
rush of,
I think my concern about using it as a conditional use instead of an ordinance, the rules are set in stone. But if we do it as a conditional use permit, you're setting precedent every time you look at one, and I think it'd be really hard to keep it even between every
yeah,
applicant.
that's true.
You know, that would be my concern, you know, and that's also my concern with creating an ordinance, letting people apply, and then rescinding the ordinance, like, we either are gonna allow them or we're not. I don't think that's the right thing. I personally don't think it's the right thing to do hey, we got a couple people really interested in this, so we're gonna figure out a way to allow them and then shut it down. We're either gonna allow it or we're not.
I think my thing though is like, if we knew parcels that it applied to, and then said, hey, these parcels it applies to, and then we just do the rest of the development in the city to not have,
Flag lots.
yeah,
Well,
to not have the parcels be in a position that they create flag lots.
We should have, I think, our
I think we already
ordinances, the
have.
way that we have our subdivisions built now,
Yeah.
they have to have a
Ex-
stub,
exactly.
they put things in place so we
So that's what I'm
wouldn't
saying, is
end
I
up
feel
in
like
that
moving
problem.
forward will be good, but if we can isolate the ones that are existing now, then we can work out
Well,
something for
I think statistically, if you look at it, like, we're at 3rd acres, right? There's no way we're ever gonna be able to do, nobody there's got enough property they can do a flag lot with, right? Half acre, probably the same thing. I think you start looking at it, if it's in an R1 and somebody's got well, they'd have to have at least 2 acres in an
Today,
R1.
what, 10 years from now?
Well, I know, but we
I
can't.
know, but we can't plan
we
like that.
can't
You look
plan
at,
like
you
that.
look at like South Jordan, all these cities, like, they were just like a couple years before, they had giant lots, and people come in there and buy. It's just how, I think it's just how the development process happens. Like, you're gonna have people like Hooper, I don't think you're gonna be able to say we're not, eventually flag lots like are gonna be in Hooper. Like, one, just because of the big parcels of lands that we have and the way that we're zoning now, I think you're setting yourself up to have people come in and say, well, I wanna do a flag lot.
Well, and is there a way that we could, with that ordinance, it's a stop in time. If it's an existing parcel that has a flag lot, because I see Sheldon's point too. If I buy 10 acres in 5 years and I build on 1 acre and then all of a sudden I start putting flag lots behind it, is there a way that we can put a limit that says, look, going forward, you're not going to be able to create these flag lots, but if it's an existing opportunity now, it's something we can look at.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends, like, in how you do it, if you have the ordinance and you're doing it through ordinance. Yeah, and then if you remove the ordinance, it's just a legal non-conforming use.
I think if we, just going back to talking to Jared and seeing what his concerns are and if those have been resolved, I would feel better having the whole picture before deciding one way or the other. And, you know, if those concerns that existed, 10 years ago when we didn't allow them, if those have been resolved, I still lean a little bit more towards the conditional use because I feel like that gives us a little bit more leverage to look at it case by case and say, okay, is this affecting the safety, the health, the well-being of the surrounding area, where we still have that ability to approve it, but it's just kind of not and I think it would be good to know, like Sheldon said, how many potential properties in the city do we even have that this is going to affect? Like, if we put something in that going forward, we're not going to approve these, you shouldn't be able to develop in a way that it would result in needing a flag lot down the road anyway, if they follow our current ordinances, I think.
I think a couple of the cities had restrictions like that in saying you can only have 1 or 2,
Per parcel?
yeah, per parcel of land. Kind of to defer, like, I don't view this as like, hey, I want to develop my subdivision and I don't want to come in and get a full subdivision application, so I'm going to go around it and I'm just going to throw a bunch of flag lots in there. Like, I guess I would want to see the ordinance written in a way that deters people from doing that, but if there is a piece of property that is landlocked, like you have one right here, down here on 4600, you have 5 acres right off of 4600 that can't be built on, that those people that own that property are just sitting on and they can't do nothing with. I don't think that's right. I guess that would be that's my goal, and not to say, hey, let's open this up to as a development strategy for developers, but for individual property owners that want to that don't have the frontage to, but have acreage behind them.
Well, one thing I like, oh, sorry, go ahead, Gene.
Does the city coordinate with the fire department and who decide, how does that go in order? Does the city approve first before you go to the fire department? Can you do them both at the same time? Does anybody know? Because the fire marshal to me said, he treats it a case by case. If we put in there, you gotta have 20 feet. He says, if they're 18, I let it slide. It's a single lot. What if he said, yes, okay, and we say no? What happens?
So you're not bound by the fire department, whatever they do. Like, you can set your own standards. You could even say like 30 feet or whatever you want. But I mean, Malcolm would probably better speak to that on the. I guess it depends on.
But if the fire
what they're
department
doing,
says
what the
18 and we say
application is.
20 or 30, I mean, that's gonna create a conflict, is it
Nate
not?
Tolman handles that process, but it's done simultaneously in some regards through a city inspect platform, but fire probably occurs fairly early in Nate's process, just to, you know.
Nate handles it, or are you sure?
Well,
When I did it, when I built it in West Haven, you took it to the county yourself as the developer, the owner, it didn't go through the city.
I
But
think
it does here.
To my understanding, but we can double check. We
But it-
can loop Nate and we could have Nate come in, because we had Jared work on it. He'll have a lot of the utility consideration, but Nate could answer some questions. I'm sure Nate would be happy to help out.
But I think this is a good first step. I agree with Amanda. It's good to get like the whole perspective picture before we're like
Yeah.
deciding on.
Well, and this kind of answers Gene's question, and then I just pulled up West Haven's for giggles, and their very first line in here addresses kind of what we're discussing here. So the very first part, lots not having a frontage on a street is required by the subchapter by having access to such a street by means of right-of-way or fee title, except access strips may be approved as special exceptions by the planning commission in any zone provided that. And then the very first letter, the planning commission determines that it's not feasible or desirable to extend a street to such lots at that time. No, that didn't answer what I wanted it to. But this does cover your width. They put minimum of 20, maximum of 30 with a 15% grade, which is pretty hefty. We're not in a flat land like West Haven. I'm not sure where you're getting a 15% grade, but
Are they talking like a crown?
I would assume so.
I would hope so.
Well, and I think if we still just put in there, maybe subject to whatever the fire district requires, then that would alleviate us having different
Well, 'cause that's in
standards
here
than what
too.
they have. And it would still safeguard us. And one thing I like too is these are the types of situations, it's kind of like when we talked about the curb and gutter escrow. When you have somebody that's just building one home on family land, I feel like we need to be a little bit more flexible in that than what we are with these big subdivisions that come in. Those are the kind of people we want to encourage. Usually they have roots here, their family lives here, they grew up here. And I think if we can make it a little bit more doable for them to build a home, that we should try and do that, as long as we're safeguarding the city so that we don't get into a situation down the road that could cause issues. So.
But does that cross the line of picking and choosing? Like,
Well, I'm not saying the requirement would be it's only family land, but I'm saying usually if someone's going to have somebody build on their property and it's just one lot, a flag lot, they're probably going to have somebody living there that is going to be an asset to the community. I don't think somebody wants somebody moving in right next door.
I don't believe someone's gonna go look for a flag lot to build a house on. It's expensive. Usually you give it to your kid or your
Yep.
grandkid or something. It's not like, I'm gonna go look at this
I agree.
because
That's a great
it's a
point.
huge expense. You're not doing it to save money. It's gonna be more money.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless you get the ground for free, right?
Are you talking like just the cost of running the utilities and stuff? Is that
Oh,
what-
yeah.
All of
Yeah,
it.
That
yeah,
$10,000
I
fire
guess
plug
so.
and
Yeah.
Yep.
And to
The
pave
road,
or put it, he's saying crushed asphalt, which, is that an ordinance, or it sounded to me like he was saying that, but we were saying it had to be a 75K test. The Hooper's saying that, so what if you get that with dirt? Can you say? no?
Said it had to be maintainable, right? Or what was it? Is that what word he used? Scrapable or whatever, so it could be
Maintainable
plowed.
surface is
Yeah,
what he called
maintainable
it.
surface. So
Plow or something?
yeah, and maybe there's like some more detailed parameters of what that
Yeah.
means, but
I don't think we're gonna have somebody come in and look them up. I'm gonna buy 10 flag lots here and develop these houses in Hooper. I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, that's not good.
well, and the reason I brought up ADUs is I want to make sure we're being consistent because, you know, if we allow ADUs to go back there, this is really a very similar type of living situation where I just wanted to make sure we're not being more stringent on these because they're a flag lot than what we are on an ADU. And it sounds like the parameters are kind of the same.
But with the flag lot though, you have to go get it retitled, right? It creates an
It's a
entirely
new,
separate.
it's
Yeah.
subdivided.
So where the
but
ADU gets
I
sold
just mean
with the
util,
property
like
one
fire
owner.
wise, like
Yeah, oh, no, that makes
if,
sense.
just in that, I maybe should have clarified that, but yeah, just like as far
Yeah.
as, you know, the emergency services, are we more hard on flag lots than we are on ADUs, when technically that ADU could be further than 150 feet back on the property, so, yeah. So maybe we can meet with Jared, or keep that?
Well, I'd get him and Nate in here both.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can capture them both, and then we don't have to have another meeting with.
Yeah, we can do that.
Anything else moving forward? Could I get a volunteer for the pledge? And then, there's someone that would like to say a prayer.
I'll say the prayer.
How are we gonna get you up there? Big
I'm gonna
casino?
scooter up there. Isn't there a ramp right there?
I think the ramp's on
The
that
ramp's
side.
on that side?
What'd you do?
What, you told me not to?
What got carved up?
No, it's best thing right now. I'm in less pain now than I was.
on 800 milligram Percocet every day.
Well, the wife did
You wanna
drive.
be, honestly, I haven't taken one.
Good job.
800 Advil and 800 Tylenol every 4 hours.
What did they do with your ankle or your foot? I can't remember. Ankle?
Then he had to,
Which way you going, like,
then he had to go on the inside. And I had a bunch of bone spurs and floaties. So every time I walked, those bones would rub against that tendon sheath and start shaving it off like a shard of
Were
glass.
your tendons good? Did you ruin your tendons?
No, he had to repair my wrist. In 2 weeks, so let's see.
I know, I just wanna make sure we didn't put him on that.
Therapy starts next week, so then maybe the Percocet will application maneuver.
Are we gonna winch you up, or are you good?
Where am I at? Right there?
Yeah, we were gonna move you to the far end, but.
You can.
I know, it'd be kind of fun.
No, the fun part's gonna go down where that's true. That's what kind of
You
what'd you do? That's your virtue.
Because I'm an idiot back in my 30s and never fit. I had my ankle replaced. It looks just like my knee replacement, only on a smaller scale. It's kind of weird.
What's been work?
What am I so pretty new on that? You haven't started there.
Next week. I want 6 weeks not weight bearing, but start some flex exercises.
What is that interest?
I went in the top and put this, and then they went in the side and straight and repaired my ligament. And then it got even higher.
There it is, there.
We'll see.
He has some PRP injections. Have we talked about that? For flu?
Prior, it cost me 3 months. I could have the surgery 3 months ago.
I'd like to welcome everybody out to the November 13th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting for Hooper City. I'm Commissioner McCormick. I'll be conducting the meeting. To begin, we'll have a pledge of allegiance led by Commissioner Larson and then a prayer given by Commissioner Prince.
We always rise and please repeat after me.
Recording in progress.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee with gratitude in our hearts for all of the many blessings that thou hast given to us. We thank thee for the opportunity to meet together as a commission to discuss the needs of our community, and we're grateful for those who are in attendance. And Heavenly Father, we ask that thou would please help us to be able to understand the needs of our community, and that we can make decisions based in truth and wisdom. Please help us to be able to communicate clearly and effectively. Please help us to be aware of all of the sacrifices that have been made for the freedoms and blessings that we enjoy. We ask that thou please help us to always remember those freedoms and blessings and to use them for good. We ask that thy Spirit will be with us, that we will be blessed with the power of discernment, and that we will be able to return home in safety when the time comes. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Larson and Commissioner Prince. We'll move into our consent items. We have a few minutes to approve. The August 14th minutes of the Planning Commission meeting of 2025, and then the October 9th. Did everybody have a chance to review those on the August? We'll first discuss the August 14th, 2025 meeting. Did anything look out of order or needs to be corrected?
Just one thing that I noticed in the very first paragraph, it references that these are the minute meetings, I believe, for July 10th, 2025 instead of August, and so I think we just need to make a correction there.
Good correction on date. All right, if there's no other issues on that, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion we approve the minutes for August 14th, 2025 and October 9th, 2025.
Do we want to discuss the October ones?
Sorry.
Well, and Commissioner Larson and I were not here for the 14th, so we can't vote on that one, and so we might want to do them separately.
Okay.
I'll
I'll amend
also
my
hear for
motion
the
to be only the August 14th minutes.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Greener and a second by Commissioner Bates. All in approval?
Aye. Aye.
Minutes approved. All right, now on to the minutes of October 9th, 2025. Was there any corrections that need to be made with those minutes as you review them?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the planning commission meeting held on October 9th, 2025.
I'll second.
We have a motion.
Hang on. You said you weren't here for the October 9th? No, Amanda.
No, I was here for October, I wasn't here for August,
Oh,
so
okay. My bad.
that's okay.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Bates to approve the minutes and a second from Commissioner Prince. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Now we can move on to our action items of discussing creating a TRC checklist. And we'll turn some time over to staff to kind of go through what was in the packet.
Yeah, so you guys all have that newly drafted subdivision application checklist in front of you there. Okay. As you guys are well aware, a year ago now, we updated our Title 10 zoning subdivision to include a Chapter 8 that was partially influenced by some new state law that mandates some requirements and some ordinance that needed to be adopted surrounding 1 to 2 family residential homes. That was tried to keep it simple, because you know you don't want to reiterate that, right? Want to make, you know, this is just an application that's really an administrative tool to give to applicants to summarize and guide them through that process. So this, in my opinion, actually got a little lengthy, but wanted to make sure we covered all of it. So you'll see the first one's just the approved land use application. That really just talks about if they need a conditional use permit or anything like that, that's included. You'll see the second one's the plat, and it goes through all the plat requirements. This is really a lot of what our review is, along with the next one. Number 3 is our improvement plan. So we go through those different things. One note on an improvement plan, not to get off topic, but as I was reading through it, I think an unintended consequence of our last ordinance was we're requiring traffic studies for minor subdivisions. My understanding and discussing with staff, those have generally been on for minor subdivisions, traffic studies have been at the engineer's requirement. So I think that's something we should revisit, and I'll get that, maybe do an agenda if you guys want to have traffic studies required for us, or if it'd be, you know, we of course we're requiring on UDOT highways, we'll require them from major subdivisions always, but on a minor, it seems like in the past we would leave that to the discretion of the engineer. Should we have, you know, 2 or 3 home subdivisions.
Malcolm, can I ask you a question before you move on that? Is that something that UDOT would require regardless of what we say if it's a UDOT road? Because isn't that kind of how that's worded, that for subdivisions of any boundaries shared with the UDOT Department of Transportation road, submit evidence that they've reviewed the subdivision plans and are in agreement? But, so, maybe I'm misunderstanding what we need. Is it, the way the ordinance reads right now, isn't that only if the minor subdivision intersects with a UDOT road?
We'd have to go to the ordinance itself, which we could real quick. Let me go find it.
If I may, just at the end there, on the last sentence, it does say on city streets, the approval for location and number of curb entrances must be received from the city engineer.
Are you still on what?
On the improvement plan on C.
Yeah.
Gotcha, real quick. You're still looking at the checklist itself.
Would that still be considered, I mean, is just the number of, the approval of location and number of curb entrances, does that constitute a traffic study?
It may in the ordinance that it state that it requires a traffic study.
So if you go down to, let's see.
I think it's under 3B. Let's see. 10-8-9. 3B, a traffic study. It's the, I think it's the exact same wording.
Dash 91, is there a traffic study section there? I can look it up. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. I'm fairly confident though. I'm confident that the way our ordinance read, and I just didn't carry it to the checklist that way because I don't think we'll have, but either way, I'll find it and bring it to you. But I'm pretty sure our ordinance read was that minor subdivision, that all subdivisions would have
pretty sure that the ordinance states pretty clearly that we have to have those finals, so if we're gonna change it. But then I worry too, because there have been situations in the past where we've had developers come and say, oh yeah, I have the water, I have everything, and then it moved forward and they did not have the water, and that caused quite a few problems down the road. So I wonder if we could possibly work with Hooper Irrigation and maybe come up with some sort of system where we know, maybe, I don't know if they're gonna wanna give them a final, maybe there's some sort of workaround that we can meet in the middle so that we're not leaving the city in a situation where we've moved forward and that timeline starts on that new subdivision review cycle without knowing for sure that we're gonna have that water. Does that make sense? I just don't want us to get in trouble because the review cycle starts and then we get to a point where they really don't have what they've represented. But according to how the ordinance reads, it can't start until we have a complete application. And so if we move into that review cycle, to me that sends the message, this is complete, and the developer could come back and say, hey, you said it was complete, even though we didn't have all of those boxes checked.
So even if we started the review and then came back and found out that they hadn't provided everything, it would then be considered an incomplete application, so it would be back on them. So it doesn't, just because we start our review, part of it we have to review to make sure that they've even turned everything in. And
to that point, I spoke with other cities, because right off the bat, I was like, oh, this is a big problem, right? Because I was following it to the T as I should, right? Like, you gotta bring me I gotta have a final, and we got Taylor West Weaver looped in, and I mean, Ross and Ranch, for instance, I think they pay, they had a lot more surety, right? They had a phase subdivision, and they've been here, done that, but I think they paid all their connections and everything, it was like $100,000, because we were starting, but everyone else we've required it as well, but so it's kind of been a bottleneck. So I talked to other cities, and that's kind of what they've done, is required it at final, but started review. And other cities that actually had Hanson do their update as well, Hanson and Associates. So I don't know. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, and maybe I'll try and get creative and see maybe we could modify the code so that it's more explicit. But that's kind of like other cities have explained to me. They're like, we just tell them, this is the subdivision checklist, you didn't meet it, so we can't start review. Would you like us to start review just so you can work? Would you like to start informal review so you can go get your finals? Like, yeah, please do. And they start looking into it, and then once they're at a good point, they're like, hey, yeah, you're close, this looks good from an administrative standpoint, we would be able to recommend it. Then they go get their finals and come forward. That's kind of in their workaround, but I know it's not explicitly clearly written. It's just trying to work with developers the best we can. But
That makes more sense to me if maybe somehow we indicate it, or maybe there's something we have them sign up front that they understand this isn't indicating that the application is complete, but we're willing to review it and look at what you can provide us right now so that you feel comfortable moving forward or something. Would that be allowable?
it's something we could do. I don't think it's necessary because it's still governed by state code, and like we can't relax those provisions, but regardless, if it's an incomplete application, if we find out it's incomplete, it's incomplete. And so I mean, there's a lot of legal support for that, but it's something that could be recommended that if they want to sign that, we could do that. But it's also something that if the code's triggered and it is a complete, even if they've signed something, we're still going to be held to whatever that short time frame anyway.
The way that it's set up right now, do we have to give them something stating, okay, we consider this a complete application, so you know that time clock starts ticking right now, 'cause we're limited on our days?
It's been a minute since I've reviewed that. I don't believe we're required to provide anything. And I've had interactions with developers too, who have a wide variety, and some are really great to work with, and you can say, hey, like, this isn't complete, and others that will fight you every tooth and nail on, or fight you tooth and nail on every.
Those are the ones I'm worried about.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's been our fix to this point, just so we're not at a standstill. We review them, we don't send them to you until it's complete. That's been, and I know it follows the spirit of it, but it might not, be to the T, but I think it technically works. That being said, I'm happy to revisit with the entities, Taylor West Weaver, Hooper Water, and Hooper Irrigation, to see if their process
Hey,
the
hey,
front.
Malcolm,
Yeah.
sorry to pause you for 1 second, but on the supplemental information, there's one that it just doesn't sit very well with me. The names, addresses, and telephone numbers of all adjoining property owners. I'm not sure that's up to us to put that onus on somebody that wants to develop to go knock on the neighbors' doors and get telephone numbers. And, I mean, the other information's available through like GeoGizmo, right? You can find out who actually owns the property, but I don't know if we should be soliciting telephone numbers. It would make our lives easier, but I don't know if, especially for a minor subdivision, I shouldn't have to go meet all my neighbors to build a house or invade their privacy to get their phone numbers. Is that, I don't know.
Yeah, no, this would come right from our code, I'm sure it calls out. And I'll double check on
I think it's
telephone
600 feet, and the city in the past, Morgan has done it, I know, and Bryant used to. He would take a snapshot of a 600-foot circle, and then he would go to the developer and say, I need $35 because I got to send out 32 letters or whatever it is to your adjacent property owner. So then the city took the burden to send the information out to the existing property owners that surrounded this.
I can see it.
Telephone numbers is right from our code. Yeah, telephone numbers right from our code, so if we were gonna change it, we'd have to change it. I think the idea behind that, they are both under supplemental information. Morgan actually does that still, she'll take the 600 feet and show it. This one's for, you'll see it calls specifically adjoining, names of adjoining developments and names of adjoining streets. Let's see, property owners of record or the names of adjoining developments. I think this one specifically is so the city could reach out about any potential issues, right?
So this is more like the city's checklist, not
Yeah.
the person coming in's checklist.
Well, it's our checklist, we're requiring it in our ordinance, but the idea behind this one isn't to notify the residents, because we'll send a stamp letter, that's how we do it. We're not notifying the surrounding residents, we wanna know any abutting or adjoining parcels, contact info, so that
Well, that's okay.
we can get a hold of them should,
This is,
yeah, go ahead.
this is for the city to do, not the person trying to get developments.
No, it's required by the developer to submit it, yeah. Yeah, for some reason when we develop it, we put the burden on them to go get it. I mean, I guess from that standpoint, how would I get their numbers?
Yeah, we talked about that when we were working on this, if you remember, and I think we went back and forth because that's putting even more on our staff, and this is the developer who's wanting to do the development. I guess the risk you run is if they don't give us all of the information for all of the property owners around it, we can't properly notice them and let them know that this subdivision is possibly going in. But I think it seems like we had talked about maybe not wanting to put extra work on the staff of having to find all of those, because they're the ones that already send the addresses out, or send the
I think
notices out.
I think we clarified this one in like a live practice with Kimball Estates, right? We had three property owners come to that public hearing, and we had contact info for those three, and they all had issues with property lines, irrigation, you know what I mean? And so I think the idea behind the ordinance, and I'm okay with changing it, was just that, yeah, I'm not out there because surprisingly I can't get numbers from the front office as easy as I thought. I thought Monica up front billing could just give me phone numbers. Sure, she can't. They're not always tied to them. I don't know, but and so the idea was they get the contact info for adjacent property owners so that should I see a blatant issue, it's like, hey, I see a discrepancy in plat maps here. They noted one. Are you aware of this or something like that? But we could modify it, but that'd be probably another conversation another day as we revisit that.
Yeah, the names and addresses are all public record, but the telephone number to me is, you'd have to knock on somebody's door then. I don't want anybody knocking on my door asking me my phone number.
Sure. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
we'll
so, because with that too, I could be like, oh, if I don't give this guy my phone number, then he can never build there. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a good.
Well, and one way we could justify getting rid of it is you guys have asked to have public hearings, so there should be notification to all residents surrounding them, so they should have their chance to come and let me know, and then if it becomes an issue, they'll come meet me, so I'm okay with it. Maybe something as we'll continue to focus on just the checklist here, and then we could set up a meet, or just a review, maybe a discussion on this chapter as a whole, because it seems like there's 2 or 3 issues that have now become brought to light as we put it into practice, and we could kind of talk about those and maybe come up with some changes moving forward that we'd like to put into practice.
So what happens if you don't if I'm doing this and I don't have telephone numbers, stops it?
I think it's probably similar to this turning in a final will serve letter. Technically, if it became an issue, and I brought up in that, like, well, technically they never gave me the first cutting if it wasn't a complete, I don't know. But am I gonna in practice tell them,
Yeah.
I don't think I got all the numbers yet. I typically, kind of run with what I got. As long as it looks fairly complete, I run with it and try and get them.
And there's a lot of property that's in a family trust, there's not no number.
Yeah, no, I think it's there to protect us, but I don't, I try my best, but I can't say that I know every phone number's there when I process the application, but I try to be. So with that, I think we should probably get that on an agenda though to discuss chapter 8 maybe and to specifically talk about those, but I guess back to the checklist then real quick. Let me get back up to where I was. So we had that supplemental information was number, I'm down at the ordinance now. Supplemental information is number 5. There we go. We have our copies, we changed that, so these are what we want submitted, digital and hard copy, and then we have the final one, payment of application, to make sure we have payment. So really it's kind of, I tried to boil it down to 7 check boxes and then the items within them. So do you guys have any concerns with the checklist as it reflects to the ordinance? Anything you want added that you'd like to see more consideration on with the checklist?
I think this looks great, Malcolm. It looks like you took it right from the ordinance, so that we're covered. And I agree with Travis on the phone numbers. I think if the city council is okay with amending that ordinance, just take that off. We don't need it. The other thing I did find in 8-9-1B2 under minor subdivisions, it does reference that area on those reports, and it says studies and reports, unless required by the city engineer, an application for a minor subdivision need not contain the studies and reports required under section 10-8-9. So it sounds like for a minor subdivision, we wouldn't need the traffic study, if I'm reading that correctly. Does that sound right?
Where are you at?
It's on 10-8-9-1B, number 2, under studies and reports. Unless required by the city engineer, an application for a minor subdivision need not contain the studies and reports required under section 10-8-9, which is the section that traffic study, I believe, is located under. I believe. Tell me. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'll have to go through 10-8-9 to know for sure. But I can't say I remember coming across that exemption there, so that might resolve my concern. So thanks for highlighting it.
I think it will be great if we can start to get this checklist sent to us, we can, and the checklist.
Yeah, I can send the checklist with the submission to the TRC for review. So
Send
you
it
can
to the
see-
commission as well.
Yeah, so that you can see the TRC or the checklist and what was checked, maybe wasn't. So
I think that will help us expedite things when they come to the commission. So we used to have that staff memo in there, and it was so helpful just to be able to look at it and know that you guys had reviewed those things or what was still lacking. And I would feel a lot more confident in voting if we had something like this given to us ahead of time.
I would just recommend adding a disclaimer on there, something to the effect of that this is an aid and that it is still the applicant's responsibility to comply with the full section, the full code.
perfect.
Excellent word.
He's the asterisk. Fine.
Yeah.
Matt, one other thing, it'd be helpful to have you review
do you know if we have any subdivisions that have recently applied or that are going to be applying that we would need this for prior to us getting it on the next agenda to approve it, or?
The closest one coming for approval will be Kimball Estates, which has been public heard and completed, but we didn't have a checklist. We just would have submitted what they sent us.
So would it be all right, even if there's one that comes in prior to our next meeting, for the staff to just use this
With that disclaimer.
with that disclaimer?
Yes, and in fact, in my opinion, this isn't something that necessarily needs to be voted on by planning commission or city council. It's more just an aid for people to help them navigate that process. So, yeah, they could definitely be using it starting tomorrow.
Okay, well, I have notes from what you guys brought up. Is there anything else?
Good job.
Okay, I'll look into the things you brought up, look at maybe a few of those. I'll double check on it sounds like we're all in agreement, and I know that staff was, we don't want to require traffic studies for minors unless they're on a UDOT road or the engineer determines we probably ought to have one. I don't want to require those, but I'll make sure that that exemption and that ordinance would allow for that. And then we'll maybe meet on chapter 8 again here in the next couple months just to see if there's any process change. But first I'll look into, some of these other utility company, how they're working through this with other cities and stuff, so that we can have a discussion if we want to try and modify the code at all. But I'll reach out as I find out some stuff. So other than that, I think that's it for the checklist. I'll send it to you guys from now on in this format.
We appreciate that, Malcolm, for the time and effort you put into putting that together. Looks great. We'll now open the meeting up to citizen comment. You will be allotted 3 minutes. Come up, state your name. You don't have to. You can state if you're a resident of Hooper, and you have 3 minutes to express your concern. You can express your concern, but we can't take any action or comment on any of your concerns. So, open that time up now to citizen comment. No citizen comment. We will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I have a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Greener and a second by Commissioner Prince. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.